probably in a day or so. We should have it out on the TechStar website for you. Okay, I want to be respectful of everyone's time, and since you all were here on time, I want to go ahead and get started. By the way, just a reminder that we are recording, just to make sure everyone knows that. Number two, if you can remember, especially the TechStar people, put your phones on silent mode so we don't record your conversation as it comes in. And we'll go ahead and get going. I'll first introduce myself. Welcome everybody to today's webinar on process mining. My name is Mike O'Neill, and I am the Director of Cloud Services here at TechStar. And some of you, I looked through the names, and I know some of you have attended my previous technical sessions that we've been doing at TechStar. We've run about 6 months, I think. I'm going to ask Bob, I think, or 6 months, 6 weeks. We've been doing technical seminars on everything from Outlook productivity to Azure to Microsoft security to Power BI, which have been really popular. We've done Teams, we've done Office 365, but this is the one I've been waiting for. This is the one I've been most excited about. And I think you're going to see why. I was the Power BI guy, and I'm well steeped in analytics. I love teaching that course. And when the concept of process mining came up, to me, it was just another version of analytics, right? Nothing special. The more I got into it, however, the more I realized I was dead wrong. There is so much cool stuff happening right now in process mining. And rather than bore everyone on the call today with a bunch of PowerPoint slides that I wouldn't want to sit through, we instead decided to do something really exciting, so kind of cool. We brought in some industry leaders to talk about what process mining is, how they used it in their industries, what issues they faced. So at least half of our conversation today is going to be really just talking with major business leaders from major companies that are talking about what the trend is and where all this stuff is going to help us get our brains around the concept. And then we have a subject matter expert, Kumar, who's going to actually show us a demo of a product that he has built, one of the many tools out there for process mining, but one of my favorites. I looked at a bunch, and I really like what Kumar has with this VIVE product. So he'll give a demo of that, but he'll also be talking about process mining just in general. So I'm going to make sure that they have a chance to give an introduction of themselves in just a second. I want to explain to everyone that we're trying to keep this as organic as possible. So we've shared a bulleted list of possible topics that come up, but it's totally kind of, I call it jazz, right? We can ask any question, we can go any direction that the conversation will take us to. So these guys aren't following a script in any way, shape, or form. They just have some general topics that they know probably are likely to come up. And I know from having doing seminars, especially when we have a big crowd like what we have right now, we have well over 50, I think we have 58 registered to attend this. You're probably not going to talk a whole bunch. So I'm going to try to encourage you to do so. And what I'm going to do is act as your facilitator. I'm going to have some questions. Some of them are a little pointed questions to get the conversation rolling. But I really hope that all of you will take the time to also ask questions and also share your experiences as we talk about process mining. You're going to get more out of this if you put some into it. So I'll be sure to call out to the audience and make sure if you have questions or need assistance or anything else, or you want to just share one of your experiences, that you have a chance to do so today. The invite said this was 90 minutes. The Outlook calendar that I sent was only 60 minutes. I apologize, those were out of sync. We're probably going to go just a little over an hour, so you can set your plans accordingly. But we're going to jump right in if that's okay. And I think the best thing is to have our panel of business leaders introduce themselves. I have MJ Barwa, I have Wes Flores, and I have Kumar Narala. And I want each of them to really just introduce themselves and tell a little bit about your background so that everyone knows kind of where you're coming from and where your experiences are. And why don't we start with Wes? Wes, introduce yourself.
Sure. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Wes Flores, and I helped co-found a company called Symmetry, which is a management consulting and data analytics firm. A little bit about my background before I started that. I worked at Verizon for 18 years, where I had very extensive background touching really like all the end-to-end processes there. I've led multiple the analytics programs there and data warehouse programs for multiple companies. Since then, between them, I've done work as CTO and led multiple consulting practices for different firms. So glad to be here and hope I have something to add.
Sure you will. Appreciate it. MJ, you want to give your background real quick?
Sure. Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Wes, for the introductions. My name is MJ Barwa. I've been in technology and in consulting for the past 20 years, specializing primarily in media and entertainment. But I've worked for a large number of service providers, and most recently was Assistant Vice President over video delivery at Frontier Communications, where I oversaw all forms of architecture, development, and delivery and engineering for the video platforms that they ran. Recently, I've been working for the past year as a technology advisor, assisting companies with digital. Sorry, feedback there.
Sorry about that.
I'm looking forward to today's conversation, and I'm really happy to be able to participate in this panel.
Appreciate you being here. And we have our subject matter expert, Kumar. You want to introduce yourself and give a little bit of your background?
Sure. Thanks, Mike. Very happy to be here. Finally, very glad that the hair salons are open. Finally, I'm able to recognize myself in the mirror. That was a big deal for a while. Founder and CEO of company Avia. We have a product called VIVE, which we are going to show as part of like how process intelligence works. My background has been in data warehouse and analytics for a long time, working at various companies. With that experience, came out and started this company. And now we are developing this platform, very cutting edge technology, process mining and process intelligence, which very eager to show during the part of this webinar.
Very good. Appreciate you all being here. You know, I worked with Kumar, I think it's been about 2 months now when we first kind of met. And MJ and Wes, I just met just in the last week. But every time I talk to these guys, it's been amazing the conversations that come out and the stories that they have. So I'm going to encourage them to tell a bunch of those stories because I think it really kind of fills in the gaps of what we're trying to do, especially when you look at analytics and Power BI versus the process mining and kind of the new direction that everyone's getting excited about. I have another set of VIPs here, and I want to make sure I call them out. Some of our founders and the business leaders of our team at TechStar are here. So Ashok Chittaprulu is here, Raghu Chittamala and Nimish Mishra. They're all part of our founding leadership team. I also have with me Bob Longo. You see Bob on your screen there, or hopefully he's waving right there. Bob is our Microsoft Principal Director, so he kind of runs our Microsoft business, and he's going to be helping kind of close out. He's also doing a great job of letting people in and muting phones when they get out of control. So Bob is showing his advanced team skills. We also have 2 team members that I just want to call out because they helped me out tremendously, which is Navi Bajwa and Jamil Noel are here. And what they're going to be doing is, because we have so many people, this is by far and away the largest audience we've had for our technical seminars. We want to make sure we hear from you. We want to make sure you have a chance to ask questions and you have a chance to tell your stories. But because there's so many, it can easily get out of control. So if you will move your mouse anywhere over the Microsoft Teams screen, you'll notice that we're using the brand new version of Teams, the one that lets you have 9 full monitors running, which is really cool. But there's also a little hand control, and it says raise your hand. And if you click on it, what it does is it electronically raises your hand up, and Navi and Jamil will be monitoring, and their job is to interject for me and for our guest speakers. If we have a question from the audience, they'll be able to call that out, make sure that your question gets heard. Or if you'd prefer not to have your voice or your video running, that's perfectly fine too. You can hit the chat window, a little chat icon right next to the raise your hand, and you can just type your question in. And again, they have done an excellent job kind of monitoring those windows so that I can keep the session going. And as I have multiple windows up here, I can't always see those questions as they come in. So just keep that in mind, and anytime you want to, please feel free to ask a question or join in today's conversation. My job is to be timekeeper more than anything, so I'll just make sure if we get too far off track, I'll pull us back on, make sure that we end on time. As I mentioned, I'm just going to get the questions started if that's okay for our panel, and I'm probably going to start with MJ and Wes just to get us going. We're in a time of just crazy disruption, right? I think everyone would agree to that. And it is hard to believe that it's only been, what, 2-3 months since the pandemic really took off, and it's now life before and life after. It certainly affects business. It has tons of people now working from home, remote workforce issues we never had to deal with. You have supply chain disruptions. We've all taken serious economic hits. I'm not sure many industries have not felt that. I want to ask our panel, and I'll probably start with Wes. Wes, give an idea of what you think's happening from an industry perspective. What's the impact that's going on? IT seems to be working harder than ever. Is that the case with you?
Yeah, there's clearly a whole lot of impacts across the board and almost in every category. Big requirements on virtualization and so forth. But I would say a story that comes to mind when I think about COVID is my son is in the restaurant supply chain business. And they basically had a challenge where the restaurants had to close, right? And that made the orders to stop flowing in. Plus, there was a scare about safety. And so they also had a reduction in workforce of about 20%. The company didn't even do that. That was kind of self-initiated by the employees. And so they had about 2 months of operations that kind of stopped. And they supply to the distribution centers, and the distribution centers always keep on about 2 weeks worth of supply. And when all this hit, they stopped ordering from the plant. They ran out of they depleted their what they had in inventory. So that created a problem all around because the supply chain was broken fundamentally. And so then you have like the boomerang effect, right? Where the business started coming back. And all of a sudden, by month 3 of the epidemic, the restaurant business was demanding more, and they had a 120% surge in orders, but they're only working at 80% capacity. And all of the distribution centers don't have any leftover on-site capacity. So that creates a big problem. And it eventually flows down even to the financials of the company. They had to move to credit to keep the whole supply chain moving. And that was something that they just have to take additional burden and risk on. And my understanding is they went from a 7-day to a 25-day payback on that. So a lot of hurt, a lot of difficult challenges. You just can't all expect, plan for all of that ahead of time.
Yeah. And I think we're seeing it roll in different ways across the nation at different times, right? Some people haven't come back yet. My daughter's trying to work out in California, and they are still in complete lockdown. They're not going to have that experience for another month or two, depending on when they finally come around. So I think you're right. And especially just like you pointed out, right? How do you ramp up knowing that the surge is coming after the boomerang hits, but you haven't had any revenue to buy the supplies you need to? It's just an absolute mess.
Yeah.
I don't know of any other way to do it. And I know, MJ, you brought this up. I stole it from you. I admit it freely. But when we were talking a couple days ago, you made a statement, and I liked it so much I've actually used it on our demand gen. You said that IT and all the strategic plans people made that were 2 years in the making suddenly got accelerated to 2 months when this pandemic hit. Can you talk a little about the accelerated change that's going on right now?
Sure. COVID-19, I think, is just a topical example of an accelerant on pressures of acceleration that were ravaging industries across the board. Like I said in my introduction, I specialize in media entertainment. That's what I've been working in for the past several years. And you could see the forces of media distribution, unlike the food services distribution. As soon as people started to stay home, that industry didn't reduce its demand. Demand actually quadrupled and it got tupled after that. So COVID is an example of an external pressure, an external eventuality that means different things to different industries. Regardless of your industry, though, I think it's pretty simplistic to say, but I think it's also very, very much rings true that acceleration and dealing with accelerated change has become our new norm for over the past decade. And as we look to try to navigate, and companies try to navigate the ever-increasing velocity of change that affects them, whether you're in the media entertainment industry and you have to deal with new devices or new media types, or you're dealing with the example that Wes brought up, having a guide or having some type of tool to help you navigate how to sit down and deal with the accelerated pace of change affecting your company, I think is absolutely critical. Taking a deep look inside and developing these processes and optimizing how you deliver your products and services is going to be the measure of success of how you sit down and address these accelerated times of change.
You and I never discussed this. I didn't even think of this till right now, but one of the things that really got me was all the broadband, especially at home residential services, was never geared or planned for business people working from home. And I was so happy. I always bragged to my buddies, you know, I have amazing broadband download speeds. Well, I don't have them anymore. During the day, all my neighbors are working from home, and I don't think anyone ever planned the network or the bandwidth or the pipes or anything, you know, for the situation we're in now. So the impact has just been ridiculous. Let me take that question and expand it a little further, though. So we're in this crisis. I get it. And in some cases, MJ, it's you know, huge demand for your video services. In other cases, it's crushing people underneath. My question is now the right time to be looking at making any kind of technology change, right? Process mining is hot. Everyone wants a piece of it, but that's kind of in normal time. Shouldn't we wait till this whole thing kind of blows over a little bit before we start thinking about reinvesting and getting into this process mining stuff? Wes, what do you think?
First of all, I think now's always the best time. I chuckle a little bit about being in the consulting industry. I meet with a lot of wide set of clients with varying problems, but something's always the same story is that they think they're almost embarrassed of some of their problems and they think that theirs are the worst, right? And so the reality, COVID-19 is an example of an issue. But just like Mike was explaining, like this is all, MJ, I'm sorry, was explaining, this is normal in today's day and age. We're always going to have problems. So we cannot wait until things get better before we try to solve them. And frankly, I think when I look at the value and some of the background and stories I have experienced with process mining, the absence of it really disables you in being effective in running your daily business. So there's never a better time than now.
Yeah. MJ, would you agree?
I would agree wholeheartedly with what Wes just said. It actually just sounds like something that I would have said normally, but I would add one level of dimension to it. I think when you as a leader are looking at your business, the best time to look at your business and the best place to look at your business are the places and the times when you're constrained. When you have to operate under undue hardship or you have to operate under some exigent circumstances, you want to look at where those draw points and those friction points are in your organization. Understand how the forces that drive your business can affect how you deal with those constraints. And in times of extreme duress is the times where you're going to be able to start, I believe, and I humbly posit, that's when you're going to be able to see and find the most value in small changes to your organization that will lead to incremental value building over time. Yeah. Your ability to respond quickly and your ability to make a definite difference in a time of need is going to pay you exponential dividends in times of surplus.
I think as we talk more about how process mining and business analytics, they're similar but different, that might become even more apparent. But before we get into that, I want to make sure, you know, we have a lot of people on this call. Some are very advanced. They've been used to these terms and these concepts for a long time. Others have, you know, recently come to the table and are just learning about it. I want to make sure when we use the term process mining, it's a ubiquitous term. It's kind of like cloud. It means a lot of things to a lot of people. So I want to ask all of you, and Kumar, I'm going to pull you in too in just a second to get your technical definition. But help me kind of get a unified definition of what this thing called process mining is. And I'm going to reverse it. MJ, why don't we go back to you and say, if you were going to try to help explain or understand process mining, how would you define it? Then I'll get Wes, and then Kumar, I want to hear from a technical standpoint if that matches with what you think.
Okay, Michael, thanks. I think at the highest level, process mining is a set of techniques or a set of, it can be implemented through a set of tools. It's a variety of methods that you can utilize to peer into your organization and gain a 360-degree transparent review of all of your current processes, the efficiency of those processes, where data is generated, where data is stored, and how and where improvements are required that can allow you to identify potential places for you to automate services, to be able to increase efficiencies, for you to be able to address variations in your processes. If I could take a step back, speaking in the abstract, regardless of the industry you're in, whether it's food service, whether it's hospitality, whether it's banking and fintech, or it's medtech, over the years of your operations or the operations of your business, chances are you have accumulated a large number of systems, more than one. And over time, those systems become pointed and they become designated to provide a certain level of a certain type of product or a certain type of service. And over time, you gain system sprawl or platform sprawl, where you have large numbers of systems that perform a wide variety of actions, and trying to figure out exactly how, or peering into your system and trying to figure out exactly how a single product or a single service is delivered sometimes requires some heavy lifting and some arcane knowledge of legacy, which sometimes are legacy systems. Process mining is a way that you can take a look into your system or use a tool in your system to be able to map how the forces of your business drive products and services through various cycles and various different pathways, and they eventually turn out into products and services that hopefully surprise and delight your customers.
I think you told me that story before, and I thought that was fascinating. When you knew you had an issue, when you need to face this up, when you started asking the questions of why do we as a business do it this way? And the answer was, well, we've always done it that way, right? And over time, that becomes the norm. Everyone keeps saying that over and over again, and no one ever takes a step back and says, wait a minute, we could do this so much better.
To Wes's point that he made, dealing with a wide variety of customers over time and over the years, it doesn't matter which industry you're in. If you ask that question, it's inevitable that you will hear that one more, at least one time. I don't know why we do it this way. It's just the way I was trained to do it, or it's just the way that it's always been done. And if you ask why that is, sometimes you'll be stymied for an answer.
Yeah, and it's year after year, layer upon layer, and at some point, it's going to just add more stress. Wes, what do you think? How would you define process mining?
Yeah, well, I definitely liked that holistic answer. It kind of gives that broad view. Since he already did a good job, I'll just give a practical example. I'm just going to take an example of when we were doing analytics reporting at Verizon to count and monitor broadband sales and monitor those all the way to billing and provisioning. The challenge we had in the way information was reported was, say, on Monday, we would come in and we would count how many sales do we have, how many pending orders are open from last week, how many have completed in billing, how many have been canceled, and how many are, we can officially count at Wall Street as a new customer. The problem was every time the pending number was a little bit high or cancels were a little high, we had to go through and do a lot of detailed analysis, do some system queries, and kind of figure it out on an order by order basis. We then went to and actually implemented kind of a process mining process. It took us some time to implement, but when we did that, we were actually able to connect an order or even a customer that's added on Monday. We knew exactly when it was sold. We knew if it had been canceled, when it had been canceled. And the entire process lineage map was kind of maintained within the analysis itself. So for me, process mining is the ability to create all of these independent transactions that occur in the life cycle of a process and meld them together into meaningful correlations and create types of insight of root cause that provides far more insight than your typical drill down, slicing, dicing that occurs in a typical analytics environment.
Right. I think both of you too were telling me stories about how you were doing process mining before there were all these amazingly cool automated tools to do process mining, right? You were putting that timeline and all that work together manually, and it's brutal. Kumar, does this make sense? Is this what you're hearing from customers? Same kind of thing?
Yes. Yeah, that was a great overview from MJ and Wes. So for me, process mining, if I want to go with the traditional Google search, is the ability to look at your process, any business process, as is transparency to discover, analyze, and optimize. So the process mining gives you the ability to discover what exactly is happening and analyze it and then optimize it. So going back to Wes's example about the orders and pending orders. So if only process mining was there at that time, it could be certainly accelerate the whole process from several months and years to probably days and weeks. So process mining can certainly expedite that whole mapping of lineage going from all the way to down. So there are several insights like you can derive once you process mining is applied. We can go ahead and explain during the webinar when I get a chance. So in a nutshell, giving you the transparency into your business process as is.
Yeah. Go ahead, Wes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to the fact that you mentioned, I really think that it's not really days and weeks. Like we had a very significant challenge where we were reporting our numbers to Wall Street that affects stock price. And like you mentioned earlier, how long did it take for us to implement this environment? It took us over 9 months to build something here, and we were way ahead of the curve at that time of implementing these things. But to your point of how fast it took to answer questions in everyday business, this was one of the most strategic tools within the company because we had to answer it by noon the day it came up in the morning of why it worked that way. And we had to sometimes go straight to the CEO of a Fortune 15 and have answers. And without this type of tool, you're exactly right. It would often take weeks, if not days at least. And the fact that we moved that to minutes and hours made us highly effective in that role.
I think it was MJ. MJ, I apologize if I got this wrong. Were you talking about force multipliers? You're talking about the impact it has?
Yeah, in a previous conversation, I was talking about the fact that process mining is a force optimizer, right? It's a force optimizer, a force multiplier for any number of quality improvement or quality initiatives or just advanced products and services you want to deliver to your customers. As you mentioned, these techniques, separate from the tools, these techniques have been around for a while. I can go back to some of the earliest parts of my career working in the hospitality industry, working for a large-scale hospitality provider. There was a way of being able to look at data coming in the organization, looking at hotel reservations and check-in information data specifically, making sure that that information was not just held and siloed in those two particular departments, but was actually proactively dispersed throughout the organization, given ahead of time to meter Ds and food and beverage outlet managers and retail outlet managers to be able to use the data that's generated via either the reservation process or the check-in process to be able to enhance guest services in lobbies and outlets and housekeeping. You name the department, that data, when made mobile and sit down and deposited or delivered to other parts of the organization, can become your force multiplier. It can sit down and allow you to really provide a higher level of distinguished service or a higher level of product quality than any of your competition is able to do. And one of the lessons that we learned there was even collecting data about hotel guests as they were coming through or as they were participating or buying certain services or buying certain products from the restaurant. Saving those preferences were ways for us to track our customers' behavior. By tracking our customers' behavior, we were able to cater to them in a much more personalized manner, and that translated directly into loyalty, which became recurring business for our company.
Excellent. I know everyone's getting to the point they're going to want to see a demo here, right? But I also want to keep encouraging you guys. I love these stories. I think it really talks well. We've used some examples, though, that are all pretty large, like a Fortune 15 account, a huge hospitality firm, telecom, communications. Kumar, I want to ask you, is this a solution that's, enterprise 2,000 employees or more, or can this also work for smaller organizations? And if so, what's the kind of cutoff?
Yeah, it's absolutely. It can be applied to medium-sized companies as well. Obviously, it's better if the process is more complex and you have more data. But for mid-sized businesses, you have a business process at the core of all their operations, right? End of the day. So the process mining certainly can help with that process on that for the small businesses, even for the size of 100+ employees. We have done some process mining implementation for a healthcare group practice. That's not too large, about 120 employees. And I can actually show a quick demo on how a mid-sized company can quickly use process mining with the help of a quick demo, what process mining looks like.
Yeah. And I want to remind our audience, as Kumar's running through this demo, if you have any questions, remember, raise your hand or put it in the chat. We want to hear from you too, but let's have Kumar give the demo and then we'll check to see if there's any comments or questions.
Let me know if you all, let me know if you all can see my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just put this slide to put the context of what we are going to show on process mining. So this is a typical mid-sized company that sells school and office supplies through internet. And every time we just swipe a button to order something, there is a process involved. Once the order, we browse the product and then select the product and buys it, and it goes to the company, ordering system, and then it goes to the inventory system, and it's where it is processed by the warehouses. A simple process, but you see how many variations and all happens in this simple process. So I'm going to launch VIVE to show you the actual process, how it happens, and how process mining can look like and help the business. Okay. I'm going to launch our process mining entry wizard, and I'm going to launch the process for the events that we gathered from this particular company data. And once it loads, I will start explaining. So this is process mining in a nutshell, right? So we took by the way, process mining is one of the most minimally intrusive applications. We just can get this amazing flow and visualization just from 3 or 4 fields at the bare minimum. So here, what you are looking at, we have about 80,000 events that happened for about 10,000 orders, and these orders are valued at about 23 million. So here, visually, what process mining does is it has some ML algorithms to order this and giving you visually at a high level what exactly is happening in your process, how people are logging in, and through by customer login, almost 50-50 split, and then coming back to product browsing and then shopping completed, how the payments are happening. This is a heat map that tells you the concentration of the orders and any outliers. So here you are looking at invoice is very high and coming down and find out any of the outliers that might highlight, etc. And also the algorithms can quickly tell you the fastest one, but more importantly, my slowest one where the friction is going to be, right? This is what I'm going to further analyze. So there are a lot more features in process mining, but in a nutshell, what I want to show you at this point is how the data from simple digital footprints is coming in, and you are looking at a holistic view of your process as is that is happening today, right? So this is process mining in a nutshell. I'll get into more features as and when things go.
Yeah. This brings up a lot of questions immediately. So how does the data get in here? I know Wes and I were talking about, having to go back and reformat a lot of data and make it all correct and right. But you're talking about just basically stealing digital footprints left by what, log files? What are these?
Yes, absolutely. I'll put up a slide, but that's a great question. One of the key features we have is, you brought up one more thing, is the data quality. The process mining can quickly also highlight, if your data quality is not right, or it could be by something like the process missed. For example, you could be looking at some orders that were received and then went to shipping. It could be a data missing, or it could be the data quality issue. So those things can also be caught by the process mining. Going back to what exactly is needed, yes, I'll just put up a slide to give you the context of what is actually involved in getting the data to process mining. So if you all can see the slide, the 3 blue arrows over here are just the fields we need from your log IT system. It could come from your one system or multiple systems, it doesn't matter. As long as we can pull it or put it in a data lake, that's all it needed. So the rest of the arrows, the columns are optional to make value, But at a bare minimum, all we need is how the order is flowing through, and what status and what timestamp it is at a bare minimum. That is how powerful process mining is. Just with that, the process mining algorithms take over and gives you the visibility of your whole business process.
Mm. I think I saw a hand raised, and then I think it went away. Jamil, Navi, do we have any questions?
I have a quick question, Kumar. You mentioned data lake, which to me suggests that you have a large data warehouse IT infrastructure in place and that the data is already kind of available to you. What if I'm just sitting on the business side and I want to run, a process mining process on data that I have?
Yeah. So is the question so you just want to, as a user, you have some file or something, you want to just quickly look at the business process. Is that a fair assumption, Wes?
Yeah. If I'm not in IT, is this something I can do, or is this required to have a whole data lake and an IT team behind me?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So we have a wizard, actually. In fact, I loaded from Excel with just by pointing VIVE to the Excel file or your database table, wherever it may be, whichever data source, you can get this process mining, what I'm showing, up and running in a few minutes. So you just point it to that, and then the algorithms will take over, and from the mere Excel file or the data table where you have all the data, you can get this in a few minutes.
Yeah, I'll inject there too, because Kumar invited me to come see an actual presentation of this to a customer. And Kumar, we went to a water treatment, governmental water treatment group, and they were basically just giving you text files almost coming off of their machines on water quality and other stuff. And you would just be able to literally suck them in live in front of the customer. You were pulling that stuff in and letting the process mining do its thing. Is that right? Did I say that correctly?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely true. Yeah, water treatment is one of the complicated process with various metrics and stages going through. And yes, just from the bunch of files, apply VIVE, and you can visually map this out. What exactly is happening? What kind of pH at what stage, and what kind of the treatment going on, like chlorine, etc. So there is a lot of advanced functions that can be done in process mining. But in a nutshell, yes, point to the VIVE to the file, and you get all this in a few minutes.
And I know I'm skipping around, but one of the things that was brought up, and I thought you had a great answer. You were talking about RPA, right? Robotic process automation, and what happens when the system gets input that it can't even understand. The whole system comes crashing down. Can you explain that better than I just tried to do?
Yeah. So it's a great question, about the digital transformation and robotic process automation, how process mining fits in. It's very critical for, let me get non-technical and try to give a good example of, a simple process of sorting apples. A company ships, apples to their warehouse or to the distributors. Say, for example, it is they're sorting apples from red to green and shipping it to the appropriate Walmarts or Targets. Now, the company decided to outsource this, create a robotic process program that can actually sort the apples and do it. Then, what happens is you spend a lot of money in building this bot, and you replace the manual worker, and now all of a sudden, if an yellow apple comes, the bot is going to freeze, or it doesn't, it's going to mess up. So what could have been the solution? The solution could have been if you applied process mining on all of your data, how you're processing the apples in the last year, and we could have shown somewhere that there was an exception of few yellow apples coming in, maybe pink apples coming in. Now you know the whole process, and now you build the robotic bot more precise. In fact, the reason why there are articles about process mining can be bigger than RPA is because the fact that when Gartner did a study, for every dollar they have spent on RPA, there were about $5 to $7 spent by the industry fixing it. This is a survey done by Gartner. So if process mining is there, you would pretty much reduce that to almost $0. Get huge ROI.
Right. Wes and MJ, does this gel with you guys? Does this make sense? Are there any examples you guys can think of that you hit similar issues? That was a nice big question, but
yeah, I would just add to the general fact that whether it's like a business transformation, a digital transformation, often RPA is in the center of those. I think it's been quoted that about 70% of digital transformations fail. And there's issues on the front end of those failures, and there's issues on the back end. And I can definitely agree 100% that this is the type of tool you need to have a better design with your new process that you're implementing for those new practices in place to really carve out the non-happy path scenarios. And that is a significant factor with those types of transformation programs.
And I want to get Wes's comment. I do see Sassy asked a question. So Sassy, we'll get your question in just a second. But Wes, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was Wes.
I'm sorry,
MJ may want to answer that. Yeah.
Yeah,
any thoughts on that?
I would agree with Wes. I don't know if I can have the same data to talk about the number of failures, but I can say with a fair amount of certainty, many of the digital transformation projects that I've had the pleasure of being a part of have actually fell into the problem of not knowing enough data ahead of time. And so their scope has greatly increased over time. And where an initial project that was scoped out to be an 18-month project ended up being, after reevaluating that, the process mapping and just being able to identify the processes and being able to dig deep and be able to map out all the different variations in process to handle, for example, the apples as Kumar was mentioning about, that ended up taking an additional 6 to 12 months just to do that type of research and investigation.
Wow. Yeah. So it's lengthy. I want to hit Sassy's question real quick, and then I want to go back to this because I think you were also kind of touching on this difference between analytics and process mining. And I think that's kind of interesting and worth diving into. But Kumar, Sassy has asked the question, are there any logging standard tools need to follow to pull in and parse the data into the format for your tool? I kind of paraphrased a little, but so do you have to use any kind of specialized logging or formatting tools in order to get the data in?
No, absolutely not. So the data is almost, you can have from the practical scenario is most of the time you do have different systems, most of the time your supply, ordering, and your sales, and then all tied together. They have their digital footprints. Some of them may have different number of columns, and some of them will have different set of dimensions and metrics. All we need is just a correlation between those, and the tool can pick it up. So the data not necessarily need to be in the particular format as neatly as the Excel I have shown. It's not possible. So as long as there is a correlation, and these days, even the SAP systems, the Salesforce, any of the systems, they do have this digital footprints, which is more data. All we need is access to that data, and VIVE can take over from there.
Yeah.
Hopefully I answered your.
Yeah, and it brings up a good point too, because I was amazed when I heard this, that a lot of companies, process mining companies that make software, sell connector packs, right? And you charge for various connectors and other stuff. You guys have connector packs, but as near as I can tell, you don't really charge for them. You can pretty much connect to anything. How many connectors do you have? And they're all free, or they're not free, but they all come with the standard product?
Yeah. So we have connectors to 175 plus data sources and counting. So we have really access to, drivers to Hadoop's, ADP systems, mainframes. I'm not even mentioning the regular ones, the Oracle's, Teradata's, all these Postgres, etc. So for us, we have tremendous amount of access to all these drivers, the driver connectors for every data source, and we don't charge by any driver. So if your company has implemented this VIVE in a particular business process that is going towards SAP HANA systems, and tomorrow you want to add your Salesforce for lead to cash process or lead to sale process, and it's going to Salesforce. No, we don't charge for that.
Wow. Thank you, Sassy, for a great question. I want to make sure I got this right. So make sure I say this, and based on what Wes and MJ just said, so I decide to build process mining. I put in the data connectors and I tap into all these digital footprints. That could be RPA, that could be log files from my order processing, for my credit reports, for everything that I have. And basically the VIVE system collects and pretty much, I guess you would say by itself, figures out all the interconnections. Those are all the lines I'm seeing on this chart that you have up in front of us. And then it's color coordinating it by response time. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it is just giving a heat map just by zooming out. Like, it will tell you what your high-level BPA or BPM process is. I could tell, this looks like, most of the orders are following through, right? This is my BPA process.
Yeah.
And any outline, and it will immediately tell you. Like, for example, this I'm going to show you. This is something like I have not expected. So I can actually drill down in VIVE. It's just not like we are giving you the ability to look at the process at a holistic. What can you do even to find out more details to find that root cause analysis? So I can just click on the 8 orders that came up, and then I can simply further drill down by clicking on that button. And what it does is pretty much gives you a DNA of that whole order. So you can look at it that what are all the processes it went through in a tabular format, and down below you can also look at the visual layout of each of those steps between start to the end, and also what is the time elapsed. Here is a 32-minute that elapsed between this stage and this activity. So you can actually do scroll down and find out the whole details. So it's as simple as this is all built in. We don't have to do anything. This goes back to Sati's question, is we just need 3 feeds, but the more data you have, we have access, the tool is capable of getting all that. So here it's it is telling me the what kind of product for that order is, and who is the actual customer is, all the data it will show automatically. Right. And in the interest of time, I don't want to drill to everyone, but I can tell you what we found out is, because this is somewhat real data, is out of these 8 orders, what we found is 6 of them belong to binders. So it could be because these kind of orders are repriced after it is invoiced. So this is something we need to take action or can automate or do something. So these kind of insights you can quickly derive by simple clicks.
This is great, and we're getting tons of questions now, so we're getting some good stuff here. And again, I appreciate everyone asking questions. You don't want to hear from me; we want to hear from you. Anupam says, right as he said that, another one came in and moved it up. There we go. Anupam says, before introducing deep learning in a construction company, is process mining suggested before the designing starts of the product? That would be interesting, not only to hear from a technical standpoint, but MJ and Wes also what their thoughts are on that. Kumar, can you address that real quick?
Yeah. So at a high level, there is a huge gap, right? You have very mature technologies today. You have a BI plethora of tools available. You have data robots and ML and AI platforms available. So what one does is the BI gives you the ability to look at historical data aggregated and gives you what happened. And then the ML and AI will give you the ability to say what would be my future look like. But the gap is what exactly is happening now in my process. Even if my process look like what I think is my BPM process supposed to be. So that is a huge gap always there. And it's absolutely right. So to be more productive, your recommendation engines or the ability of your ML and AI programs to adjust accordingly based on what's happening right now, tomorrow when a new process comes in. So it's more effective and more productive to have process mining to give you a transparency into what is happening, and also quickly identify and mitigate it or adjust your programs.
Wes, when do you bring it in? When do you decide it's time to look at pulling in the process mining part of it?
Well, I think the conversation we had earlier is quite important to this, in the fact that the maturity of the technology has gotten to where you can actually build a model in a day, right? We can argue the value of it, but if this is going to put a 1 year halt on your project, most people don't have the time to wait for that. But when you're talking about a week or two of pre-analysis to really get off on the right foot, like at some point you're really shooting yourself in the foot. And this is a well-known development best practices aspect. But if you solve a problem in the design phase, and let's say it costs $1 to fix in design, that same issue, if you didn't fix it in design and you fix it in development, in the development life cycle, it's probably going to cost you $100. But if you have to fix that in production, it's going to cost you $1,000 to $5,000, that one issue. So the more you can push the learnings for a more complete design up front, and AI machine learning is no different, right? I mean, obviously there's different uses and applications of that technology, but at the end of the day, the power of that particular implementation is going to be based upon a broad understanding, and the nuances of that process will pay for itself in dividends 10 times over, for sure.
I love that. That is so dead on. And I'm going to steal another MJ saying. I think this is MJ. I keep worrying I'm miscrediting this, but MJ, you said the customer doesn't know what the customer doesn't know, right? And if you're going to be caught with a surprise, I think this is Wes's point, find it early, right? Because a late surprise is going to cost 10 times more.
I would agree. And yeah, and you do owe me royalties for that, so I'll collect on that after the
I didn't know that.
But in addition to that, I believe the question was actually from the audience was rather specific. It was asking about deep learning and whether or not this tool should be utilized in the design phase, prior to the design phase of a deep learning experiment. So, based on my work and the work of the teams that I've had the pleasure of working alongside, deep learning is a variation of the entirety of the entire field of ML and AI. And deep learning is really taking an approach to looking at data and providing an algorithm or running a machine learning algorithm against that in an unstructured manner in order to find the best route forward or the best recommendation through that. I'm taking some liberties with the definition, but part of that issue is part of the design phase of building your deep learning algorithms is building your training data sets. And when you take that approach, there's a lot of work that's involved in there. Process mining allows you, if you're able to use that tool during the design phase, to really come to the table with narrower training data sets and be able to make more rapid advancements to your deep learning models. It's not like you're applying a static model. So I think I'd be comfortable in saying, and I'm saying this with a little bit over my skis here, but I would sit down and say a tool like process mining will only make those initiatives more efficient and more productive. I believe that it would help accelerate that type of project.
Yep. I want to go back to Kumar real quick for more demo. And Vinay asked a question. Can you please ask Kumar to highlight the equivalent of red versus yellow apple process as it relates to the chart you're showing? Is there any way you could show us how the RPA would kick in here, or where we would see that inside the chart itself?
Yeah, you can actually what we do is something different. Is like we give you the ability to set your color config, right, or your filters.
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually, this is set to the stone. You can set your own colors, to decide on. Go ahead. So whichever ones you want to do. You can set your thresholds, right? You can set, say, I want a red color of some percentage value, say, 40%, and then, set my high color and low color. You can quickly get your own heat map. So it depends on which threshold you want, and then, quickly set it up. So let me try to do that. Hopefully, I answered you that question.
Well, I think it was referring to the sorting of the apples, and when suddenly you see a problem, how would that manifest itself in your chart?
Right. Okay. So let me go ahead and show how that can be done with which we are doing in beta. is the ability to define your own BPM process using our tool, and then find out the violations, any paths. So this is in beta, but it's coming very soon. What it does is you have the ability to define what you think is your red and green as your BPM, and then quickly check how it looks like. So this is your red processing, this could be your red apples and this could be your green apples, and it grade out all the deviations that is not normally what you are expecting. So
I got you. So every pathway is being shown here, and you're showing it by time. Is there a way to show it by, cost as well?
Yeah. So this is actually by the number of orders you can have. This one look at by any type of matrix you have, and you can also launch a side-by-side comparison by cost as well, right? So this is the same process. You can have a twin that shows you for the same process how your costs for each of those steps are between the customer login and the product browsing. And yeah.
Keep going.
So it's not only we give you the ability to look at, compare, and look at your process mining in various ways, but also what we do is we give you the ability to enter your own costs for each of the steps. Remember, VIVE has no knowledge about these activities. Tomorrow, if there is some other new PayPal comes in, it will VIVE will automatically pick it and show that path as well and the status. So you can enter your costs. For example, what is my fixed cost? People are browsing, and I pay just 10 cents per transaction. And if I have to pay somebody $1.10 per minute, I will enter that. And any cost, say, for example, I have to pay the bank tech about 2% to the as the amount by total amount. You can enter that cost and simply set that. That way, you can actually literally calculating your costs on the fly.
Yeah.
It will show you exactly.
Well, and costs come into ROI, and I want to talk about ROI. We're kind of getting close to our timeline, but a couple questions popped in. I just want to knock them out real quick. Sassy had asked, any connectors to BPM tools like iGraphics, widely used in business process mapping and others. Do you support that?
Yes, Mike. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Raj had a great comment about, he says, I believe that it's a value-added competence when we were talking about earlier. And we got that answered my question, so that's great. Appreciate that. Let's talk for a second about, and I just kind of want to map this out so we know exactly what it was, because we were talking about the difference between analytics, business analytics, Power BI, things of that nature, and process mining. BI is great at showing you where you've been up to today, right? I can look at data, I can twist it, I can analyze it. And I think our guests have done a great job on the panel describing the real value here is letting it stitch together all those background operations in ways that we probably wouldn't normally find. You're mentioning it might take 9 months or a long time to build some of these systems kind of the old way. These new software tools have the ability using algorithms and machine learning and AI and all that wonderful technology. They can, without you having to even describe it, they can stitch together how all those processing and orders go together. And then more importantly, they can show you where there's waste, where you have bottlenecks, where your costs are soaring, where your shipping is taking too long, or your customer satisfaction is really taking a massive impact. And I think what Wes and MJ were saying is knowing that earlier in the design process is critical because it's going to cost you a ton later on. And I'm seeing a bunch of dots flying around. What's going on there, Kumar?
Oh, I didn't mean to. I just, yeah.
No, that's so cool. Explain what that is. That's neat.
Yeah, that's a very great feature. In a process, going back to Wes, or I think everybody in this webinar can relate to, is a BI can tell you, something is not, not right. You know it already. So, the pending orders, or something canceled. Now, what is important in a process mining world is, what caused it? Was there a precedence? What kind of path it followed? Is there a pattern I'm looking for that caused this order to fail. So that is the beauty of these dots that I showed you about. Is what it does is, like, I selected 3 orders. I just want to compare the red one and this order number 1 and the 10, how they are following. So this way you can have apples to apples comparison of, like, to find out a pattern, or apples to oranges if needed, to find out, like, what is different from these my failed orders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which parallel? Is there somebody that, like, is supposed to approve, didn't approve, or, like, what happened? Like, is there a particular salesperson reason for this? So this is a very powerful feature we added, thought would be interesting, and I just clicked it by accident. Didn't mean to interrupt the flow, but hopefully.
No, that's neat. I know, MJ, we were talking about you worked and had been a part of a team that was dealing with call center issues, and particularly finding out where some of these bottlenecks occur from a call center perspective. Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, I was actually working with a group of very talented ladies and gentlemen at Frontier over a year ago. And although we were the video team, we were asked to assist the call center to figure out additional ways to help provide more efficient and more expeditious resolutions to service issues. And the team really took a process mining type of approach. We didn't use tools at the time. We didn't have a tool that we had available to us. So we really stitched together, or that team really stitched together a rudimentary approach to perform some of the capabilities that Kumar's been showing us here. At a high level, just to kind of narrate, at first we started to look at why support calls were taking so long. And having never actually worked in a call center myself, I felt it was important to go and actually sit alongside customer service agents. So several of the team members, we actually did that. We found out that they had to delve into and dive into multiple systems when a customer called in. This was
Can I throw in my biggest hatred when I call a call center? It drives me nuts. Whether I'm using satellite TV or whatever. I know the person that's answering the phone is a first line support person, but inevitably I've already rebooted my modem. I've already checked the cables. I've done all that. And when I call in, the very first thing they tell me to do is, well, why don't you reboot your modem? And they're going to follow that script no matter what. And it just makes me insane crazy. I don't know if others have that experience, but
Mike, that's exactly what we found. And that was one of the issues that we were just shocked by, is that why in 2019, 2020, are we still not using the data that's provided and collected in the systems to know that set-top box or that modem or that wireless access point had been rebooted within the last 30 minutes. We had all that data, but the call center agent, whether it's first tier or second tier, didn't have access to that. And so that was a bottleneck in a process, and that we had one of these data silos that was just a repository of data that was not being used, not being surfaced to a call center agent. And so we took a very creative approach to figure out how we could collect that data, how we could correlate that data, how we could enrich that data. And the team figured out a couple of inventive approaches and very creative approaches to be able to surface that data to the call center agents in a way that became immediately actionable. And in some cases, we actually worked towards creating rudimentary process automation to be able to proactively resolve a customer's issue, and when a customer called, to be able to trigger remote resolution of customer issues. So I hope that answered the question that you were looking for. So
that means the agent would say, I see you just rebooted your modem, and just skip that step. Is that
in a perfect world? Yeah, that's how it could end up being implemented. I would sit down and say the ultimate goal was for us to be able to say, as soon as that customer was calling and as soon as they were put into a hold queue, that the system would automatically know how to take those first 5, 6, 7, 8 troubleshooting steps, whether or not they had been done or not, and perform them on behalf of the customer, so that when that customer call was actually picked up live, the agent could provide a higher level and a higher touch of personal service and say, Mike, I appreciate you being on hold for so long. I just want to let you know our system has just run the following checks, and what we see of your situation is XYZ.
Yeah. So many companies don't even know they have these problems. That's the part that drives me nuts. My wife is a nurse, and this is another one of my pet peeves. I apologize, but you hit a nerve here, right? I go to the doctor, and the first thing they do is they give me a form, and they say, write out all your prescriptions. And it's like, you gave me all the prescriptions. Why am I telling you? You should already know. This should already be filled out and already done. And it just drives my customer satisfaction nuts. The key thing, though, is those doctors don't think about it. and they don't even know they have a problem. And I think that's what process mining can do, is it can put all those connections together and tell you where you have a problem, where I think like Wes was talking about, you may not discover that problem when you're looking just by yourself for months, where these tools can identify it. And I think in the Apple's example we were bringing up, very quickly color it, identify it, make it stand out from everything else, whether it's on time or cost or any other such metric, and you'll immediately know, here's where my bottleneck is, here's where my problem is. Wes,
Mike,
that ring with you? Yep.
Yeah, the two examples that you've given that you took very personal, I understand that. And if you allow me to soapbox for one quick second here,
Sure.
Process mining sounds like an abstract set of data and analysis techniques, but it really is a human-centered, a customer-centric approach to looking at how you're delivering your products and services. You have to remember that these aren't just lines on a graph and points on, I should say, lines on charts and points on a graph. They're actually customer touch points in a lot of cases. It's a customer waiting for something, a customer requesting a particular action, or one of your employees, one of your internal customers, taking action or performing some type of routine task. And if we can sit down and bring the human-centric aspect back to this, I think we're all going to see a great improvement, regardless of the industry that you're in and regardless of how you implement and utilize tools like this.
Yeah. Wes, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. I definitely love the customer experience aspect of this. It really addresses all aspects of running a business. I really think of it, and I think the underlying point that you were pointing out is the fact that it's speed to market, but it's speed to market to answering questions. I think of the 5 why rule that says, hey, you can get to the root cause of any issue, which is, why are my net promoter score down this month, right? Why are calls too long? Why is the sky blue? If you ask any question and you're going to get an answer, it's going to create another question, and you're going to ask why, right? 5 of those in a row, you're pretty much going to get to the root cause in almost any scenario. You could just take that back and try it. But think about that in the course of BI. The example that MJ is giving is that normally you have access to one system and then you got to go into another system. The root cause of that is days and weeks. Sometimes you can't get access to it. The fact that this automatically is designed to stitch the steps together, that you can actually answer why and then answer why to that and then why to that real time, that's the type of speed to market that you need to be current in today's marketplace and give you that advantage. And I just can't emphasize enough the importance of speed to market of answering business questions.
Right. No, that's great point. We're running out of time, so I want each of you to have a chance to summarize here. I also want to knock out a couple of questions. And there's one more thing I wanted to make sure we touched on, because I think this is critical, which is security. Anytime we're dealing with data, security's got to be first and foremost. And so I'm just going to go right back to Kumar. And Kumar, can you tell us a little bit about the VIVE product in terms of security? Because I would not recommend any product that didn't lock down the data and keep it secure. And I think in specific, because I saw you do this with the water municipality account call that I was on, when you do this for customers, you can actually take customers' data, analyze it, and come back to them and show them live data of their own stuff. You do that for the customer. And most importantly, if I got you right, is the data never leaves the customer's location. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. It's. I think you brought up a very great question, especially the water treatment. It is this kind of data, any water treatment plants by the cities or hospitals, etc. Especially water treatment plant, it's sensitive data. So what VIVE it does is we offer the VIVE can be installed either on-prem or on cloud, and especially for organizations like this, they're very sensitive about it. Even the banks, they have financial audit where process mining is very helpful to identify any compliance issues, thereby saving millions and millions in fines. But that audit data is never going to leave the firewalls of the company. So VIVE can be installed within the firewalls, and you just no technical needed. The financial analyst can operate it, as you have seen how easy to slice and dice your process mining. So that's we are the ones that give you the ability to have a on-prem as well as a cloud as needed.
Right. Fantastic. I love that security built in from the start. I think it was designed from the start. That's most important. Numpam says, so ITMS standpoint, process mining can be used for every RCA and know the loopholes much faster. Will that be right to say? And I think the answer is yes. Would we all agree to that? Yeah.
ITSM.
Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna just a second. I'm gonna hand it over to Bob, but I want to go back to our panel real quick. I want to ask Wes, MJ, and Kumar any last thoughts that they want to leave our group with, and then I'll thank everyone, and then I'm going to turn over to Bob to kind of close us out. So why don't we start with MJ? You got any last thoughts you want to share?
No, I'd just like to thank the panel for the time. Mike, you've been a great host. Wes, Kumar, it's been wonderful talking to you, and I really look forward to being able to assist. If there's anything else that I can do to help you guys out with this project or any others, please just let me know.
Whenever this pandemic is over and we can go out and enjoy adult fuzzy drink, I'm buying. How's that? That's the best I can do. Wes, how about you?
Yeah, I'll echo what MJ said. Definitely appreciate being here. And I would just leave with the words that I really think this is cool. But it's not just cool, it's powerful. So I think I'm just excited about the opportunity to solve business problems with this tool.
Great. Kumar, anything we left off or that you want to bring up about the VIVE product we haven't discussed yet?
Yeah, thanks for Wes and MJ. Looking forward for the kind words. And yes, it's the more importantly, the process mining is very important, as both the panelists have said. There are a lot of features, in case the people wondering, we didn't touch upon, but the idea is to explain about process mining. There are a huge number of features, that will help you. You can have your alerts, notifications, set thresholds so that they will get an email. There are different views. You can look at the same process mining by click of a button. You can look at it to get more even insights a lot quicker. So I didn't want to go into detail of every other feature we have, but just want to highlight the importance of process mining.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
This is Raj. Can I just take 10 seconds?
Oh, absolutely. Please.
Thank you. So one of the things for everyone, I think, thanks for joining, but one comment I want to make is process mining and process analytics have become so critical for all the, I would say, top 50 Fortune companies because of the fact that business continuity has become a big problem. So recently I've seen a case of a CPG industry where they lost $40 million worth of orders in the system and they have no clue. And we built a solution to actually let them know where it is and what happened. And it is basically process mining and process analytics. So today after COVID, it has become more important. As I'm part of corporate consulting, I see that very, very, very prominent, that business continuity in such a disaster is really important, and process mining is the tool or the application that will enable them. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Right. No, it was a great comment. And you're exactly right about business continuity, right? It's so important right now, and this is a great tool. And I think it goes back to the question we asked earlier, is now the time to do this or should we wait or whatever? And our panel brought it up. Now is the time, right? I wouldn't delay. As it gets harder to sell, as you get that boomerang effect that Wes talked about, et cetera, this is a tool that can help you get out in front of it to increase your profits, lower those costs, make happier customers, et cetera, just to survive in business continuity while this crazy time of the world is going. It will pass. We all know it will pass. We just don't know when it will pass. But I agree with that comment wholeheartedly. I appreciate it. We're running out of time. We'll stick around for any questions, but I do want Bob to kind of help wrap us up. So Bob, if you will, if you can jump in.
Sure.
Kind of close us out, I would appreciate that greatly.
Not at all. Thanks, Mike. So I want to be sure that everyone knows we have a no-cost trial of the process mining tools, which you saw today. So we'll examine your data and provide insights similar to what you saw today. As you heard, we have a cloud solution. We also have the on-prem solution for those clients that have to keep their data on site. So we can do that again as a no-cost trial. So if you're interested, pop my contact information into the chat window now, but we're also going to follow up with a very short survey and a follow-up email, so you can certainly reply to that if you want more information. But on behalf of the management team at TechStar, we want to thank all the participants, particularly our panel, but for everyone's time today. We're very grateful.
And please check back to TechStar events. We have more of these coming, and we really are excited to have a chance to talk to you and share some of this great technology. So keep looking back, because we'll be updating that on a pretty regular basis. So with that, again, my thanks to the panel. You guys were so nice to do this for us. I think your insights were just incredible, and I will buy maybe dinner and a beverage. You guys twisted my arm, but we've got a future date there to thank you for that. And again, I appreciate everyone taking the time out today. Hopefully it was worth your time. I've been getting text left and right from people telling me it's worth their time. They really enjoyed it. So hopefully that's the case. Lastly, we'll go ahead and finish the recording, and we'll get this posted. So again, if you wish your boss had seen this, or you wanted to share it with someone else, point them back to that TechStar site, and we'll have it predominantly displayed. You can watch the whole video online. I think the intention too is we're going to do a couple more of these about process mining as well. So hopefully soon we'll see you again. Thanks everyone for joining, and hopefully we'll catch you again on another TechStar technical training. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.